Good evening. This is Photo Mentor TV, and tonight I'm going to share some photos and some photography from your fellow photographers and hopefully show you how to see like an artist.
I built up walls like mansions to the sky. Protect my heart so it would survive.
Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? I'm Lee Love, and this is your first time here. This is Photo Mentor TV, when I'm a commercial photographer and editorial photographer. And even if it's not your first time here, I'm still Lee Love and Photo Mentor. Anyway, the purpose of this show is to help you guys become better photographers, learn to see like an artist, and focus more on the art of photography and not the techno babble. Anyway, I'm glad you're here tonight. We're going to be doing photo reviews. Now, I know you guys are really smart and you probably own a calendar, and this, because we do this the first Tuesday of the month. So you're probably aware this is not the first Tuesday of the month. It's the second Tuesday of the month, and that's due to the fact we had some technical issues last week. We're not able to do the show, but normally this show is done on the first Tuesday of the month, and you're welcome to submit your work. We'd love to have you do that, by the way. And if you haven't seen this, you can submit your work at go to review.photomentor.tv and submit your work there if you'd like. We encourage you to do that. And of course, we broadcast the show here on, as I said, the first Tuesday night on YouTube and also LinkedIn. So even if you don't have to be here live to see your reviews. You can watch them at any time. So anyway, let's see here. The way we do this, by the way, is the reviews are not based on what I like or don't like. I may give my personal opinion, but they're really based more on the 7 elements in art. And these are the things I use to judge the work by. This in composition. And of course, if you're not familiar with the 7 elements of art, they are lines, shape, form, space, texture, value, and color. And the reason we do this is because every piece of art has one or more of these in their work, whether it be a painting or a sculpture or photography. So we try and use those as the guidelines for judging the work, and that keeps it consistent, and so therefore it's not about whether I like it or not. And one of the reasons I started this, quite frankly, was because I saw so many people on Facebook giving likes or dislikes or comments, and you really had no reference on whether what they were telling you was right or not if you're a new photographer. And in fact, quite honestly, you didn't even know if they owned a camera or not. So the idea here was to give you some real concrete, solid feedback on your work and to be able to help you to improve. So that's the goal here. So a couple of things to get out of the way, a couple of housekeeping things. First of all, the first one is that if you're interested, we have a great newsletter, which is produced by Sue Ann, who is our content creator, content director of content, and all-around wizard of words, as I call her. And she does a great job on the newsletter. So if you're interested in subscribing, of course, it's free. Just go to photomentoracademy.com/newsletter, and you can sign up for that right there. And encourage you to do that. I think you guys will find that very beneficial, very helpful. The other thing is, I want to start with a little bit of a quote tonight, and this is from a photographer named Steven Pinker. And the art of photography is all about directing the attention of the viewer. And you're going to hear me refer to that quite often because I believe the same thing. When we look at a piece of work, whether it be a piece of photography or art or whatever, the human eye tends to wander around the frame, and we're looking for clues. We're looking for information about what we're supposed to be looking at. What is the artist trying to tell us? What is the photographer trying to tell us? And so we have to look at the frame, use again these 7 elements of art to try and determine that, along with composition, to try and decipher or communicate what that might be. Now, I'll also say that these 7 elements of art are very much analogous, in my opinion, to the construction of a sentence or any language, right? If you're trying to communicate with somebody, you have nouns and verbs and sentence structure and all these things, and the way that the words are formed and where they're placed in the sentence have to help you to communicate, help you get your point across. And so if you don't have that structure, it's very difficult to communicate. The same thing is true for photography. And what's interesting is I find that very, very few people talk about this. It tends to be more about what I call techno babble, the aperture, ISO, shutter speed, exposure triangle, all that kind of stuff. Now, that's important, of course, but it should be less important in the beginning. And I could go into that. I won't go into it now, but it brings up a whole nother topic, which I've developed a whole methodology called STEPs, which helps you to become a better photographer quicker than going through the techno babble. Anyway, okay, so let's jump into some of these images tonight, and I think you guys will see what we're going to do, what we're talking about. The first one is an image by OT. And by the way I do these is they are anonymous, and the only reason they're anonymous is so that, I want to encourage you to submit your work. It's not about getting praise or dislike or anything like that. And if you're a new photographer, maybe you're bashful, you don't want to submit your work, and therefore you don't want to be criticized, which I'm not going to be that critical anyway. I'll give you some good insight, but I'm not going to berate anybody on here. Anyway, the point is, so that's why they're anonymous. So this one is was submitted by OT, and OT has been shooting for 5+ years. And it's interesting. One of the questions I like to ask is, what are the issues that you struggle with? And the list is long and also very common on this. But OT said they struggle with exposure, focus, editing, lighting, composition, posing, and business, which I think is about everything. About everything. And it's not uncommon. Believe me, we all struggle with these kinds of things. So I get it. I'm not trying to make fun of that. So I appreciate you guys giving me this insight, because it really helps me to focus on the kind of things that you want to know about. This was a shot that they took. They saw this path, and they wanted to use it because we talk a lot about leading lines. Okay, that's one of the things that we talk about here in using the 7 elements of art, with the first one, of course, being lines. So they wanted to be able to use these lines to as a way to draw attention to the dog, to the pet. So this is I think I see where they're trying to go here, but let me give you a little bit of suggestions. Let me see if I can bring up, where is it? Okay, my screen here. So I'm going to bring up this my editor over here. Okay. So this is the picture that they submitted, and I see where they're trying to go, but the problem, I think one of the things you might be able to improve is you got a little too much space up top. And this is very common, by the way. I see this. And so what I would do is I would suggest to draw. So here, let me back up. One of the things that I focus on is something I call, who's the hero? What is the hero of the shot? Now, it doesn't matter whether it's a product or a person or a pet. There's something that you, as a photographer, want the person to look at. And again, let's go back to Pinker example. The art of photography is all about directing the attention of the viewer. So this is exactly what we're trying to do here. So my question is always, what's the most important aspect of this picture? And I refer to it as the hero. Again, it's not a hero in the sense of superhero. It's a hero of what's the thing you want people to look at. So obviously it's the pet, and obviously the expression on the dachshund's face. So to be able to do that, um, that's okay. What you want to be able to do is eliminate what's not necessary. So photography has a lot to do with elimination, not adding. I find a lot of people add too much information, which distracts. So here's an example of what I would do with this photo. The first one is I would crop this out. My suggestion is to move this down like this. Okay. Now, this does one thing. First of all, I think it's obvious now that the focus is now on the pet, right? Your eyes go right to the dachshund. Now, one thing that I did here is I added this bottom part. I took and duplicated, okay, the bottom, the grass there, and I duplicated it. Just, you can see it's kind of rough, but I wanted to get the example. So one of the things that you could have done here, OT, is get a little lower. You want to be at eye level, of course, and instead of using the space at the top, like you did here, which is a little bit distracting because I don't know what it is. I see some white thing up here. I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to be looking at. So the pet is kind of, buried, in my opinion, as far as the focus point of the image. But here, it's obvious that the pet is the most important thing. Okay. You could even go and, if you were to add lines to this thing, is that showing it? Yeah. You can, they're kind of faint. I don't know if you guys can see these blue lines or not. But the rule of thirds, and you don't have to follow the rule of thirds, by the way. It's just something that gives you a guideline, but it's something to kind of experiment with. I think most cameras allow you to put this in the viewfinder, but if not, you can probably put it on the back of you could put some tape or something on the back of your display. But so this if you look now, the dachshund is right there in the upper third. Okay, then you get this bottom part here that leads you right to where you want the dog to go. Let's see here if I so now, okay. Oh, let's make this a little different. This brush a little better here. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now you can see now your eye is all about right there. That's everything. Your attention goes immediately to that point in the frame, not the other way around, as opposed to this one here, which was a good attempt. I saw where you're going with the leading lines, but I always tend to try and draw and suggest you use from the bottom of what you're trying to do, not so much from the top, because the top, it's just a different kind of approach, and I just don't think it works as well as if you use the foreground to draw people to the eyes, to the photo, or to the subject or the hero. So anyway, curious if you guys agree, disagree. Be sure and leave a comment in the comment section if you'd like. If you think this could be done differently or something like that, always interested in hearing seeing your own comments on that. Okay, so that's the first one from OT, and I think bring up my note again here. Sorry about that. Okay, now OT also submitted another one, I believe. Actually, they submitted 3 of them. There was 2 of them. I'm going to save the other one for last because I think it's actually even more impressive. Okay. So this one here was submitted. This is a photo submitted by S.A. And S.A.'s only been shooting about it less than a year. And again, they also have the same kind of concerns about, about, whoops, let's see here. Sorry about that. Go my buttons. Oh, here we go. They also have the same concerns about exposure, lighting, editing, and posing, which again, something we all struggle with at one time or another. But anyway, so this is they went on, SA said they went on a day trip with their camera, And they took a model along, and they wanted to some of the sky in the photo to show this rock formation. It made a bridge versus just a woman standing next to the rock. They also wanted, and this, by the way, this is very, very helpful. I appreciate you guys giving me this background because it helps me understand what you're trying to say, what you're trying to communicate. So they also so they wanted a model to they wanted to be to show how big the rock was, which is good. Give some comparison. They wanted to, and they wanted to. They didn't have any clue how to edit it, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a second to make the colors in the image pop a little bit. And it seems too bright to them, maybe even out of focus. Now, one thing you'll see about you'll hear when you if you watch any of my reviews, there are two things I tend not to spend too much time on. First is the technical, which is what most people would talk about focus, and they'll talk about shutter speed and all that kind of stuff. Those are important, but the reason I don't spend too much time on it, quite frankly, I know it's difficult for you, but trust me, it's the easiest thing to learn. It's the seeing that's the hard part. Learning to see and learning to tell a story is much more difficult than the technical aspects. So that's why I don't put too much emphasis on that. But I'll touch on that here just because they're mentioning it in their review or their comments. Okay, so so they said this one, maybe the other one posted in the groups. Mentioned just watch your composition. Yeah, so I would have said. Okay, so that's what the photo looks like out of camera. Let's see here. Okay, and let me bring this in here like this. Okay, so so here's what I would suggest that you could do with this to make it a little more impressive or a little more. So first of all, you're right. It's a little. The model is in shadow, which is fine, but the way to solve this, by the way, and I know it's going to be scary, is to use flash. So what you could have done is you could have added a flash to just the person and made the background just a little darker, and that would have made the person stand out. But if you don't have that, here's another way you could do it. So what you do is you do a layer above it, and this is just one way of doing it, technically. You bring up the exposure, and this is not a Photoshop lesson, so you guys I know you don't want to go into all that. But what this is, what I did is I created a level here, okay, and then I masked it, and then I painted here where I wanted the light part to show, and kept the other part the same. So this would be one way to be able to help this image a little bit and make the subject stand out. Again, it's the same kind of thing here, right? Where do you want the subject, where do you want the viewer to look? That's the most important thing. And as you can see, the subject's kind of buried there a little bit. But with just a little bit of editing, you could do this in Lightroom, you could do this in almost Paint, any kind of program. It's not a lot of skill involved in doing this part. And you might be able to, and again, I know you said you wanted to see the rock and the size, but you could maybe bring it down if you wanted just a little bit. That's just one possibility, and still show the size of the light. Now, unfortunately, the size of the rock. I mean, unfortunately, the light was not your friend here because the area and the time of day it's falling, it doesn't show you the structure of the rock that maybe you were hoping for. So if it would have been possible to shoot this a little different time of day, maybe depending on where the sun would have been, you might have been able to improve this a little bit. Now, keep in mind that there's a couple of apps you should look into. I'll try and remember. Sue-Ann, remind me to put these in the show notes. There's one called Sunseeker, and there's another one that I use. I forgot I think it's called the Photographer's Ephemeris, and the app lets you can put where your location is, and it will tell you exactly where the sun is going to be at any given day, any time of day, any month, a year from now, 2 years. from here, whatever. And that way you can then predict where that sun's going to be. So if you want to make sure that sun is behind you, so it's illuminating your subject a little better, you could use this app to pull this up and figure out what time of day you need to be shooting at. It's a very good tool to use. You know, when you're a commercial photographer like I am, you can't just show up and inspect things to work by accident. You have to plan. So that's what I would do. I would plan the time of day. Now, of course, I would also bring my own lighting so I could make it look however I wanted. If I want to make it look dark or light or whatever, I have complete control over it. But anyway, so that's let's see, that's what I would suggest, SA, that you look at. I see what you're trying to do, and I applaud you, by the way, for your effort, because you know, you had a plan. You went in, you saw it in your head probably what you wanted this to look like, and you were attempting to create that. And that is the very first thing to do. Pre-visualize what you want to see, what you want it to look like. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, and you're going to find this yourself. I describe this as like you have this gap, right? So here's my idea of what I think the picture should look like in my head, and here's where it actually shows up. So that distance is how I judge the success of my photos. What I envision them to look like and what they actually look like. And the smaller that gap, the happier I am with those photos. Now, sometimes the gap is even better than I expect it to be. So if you're open to ideas when you get on location or wherever you're shooting, you want to be open to that. You don't want to be stuck too much to the one idea. But the point is, you want to have at least a concept going in, and I applaud you for having this and a vision for what you're trying to do. So keep it up. If you have any questions, by the way, on any of this stuff, you guys, be sure and send me an email. You can send an email to help@photomentor.tv or Lee at, yes, it is, Allie, it is a whole nother beast. My favorite, though, by the way, I should tell you. The beauty, though, of Flash is this, is you have complete control. So Flash is not as difficult as you want to imagine it should be. Okay, I think you could really do if you wanted, you could. It's not that hard to master, is what I'm trying to say. And what I would suggest is go and check out our YouTube channel. Obviously, it's youtube.com/photomentortv, because you're probably watching this on there, and subscribe. But there's if you go to the playlist called Lighting, you'll see that I have 4 or 5, I think 5 or 6 videos just on lighting alone. And I break it down pretty simply. And so hopefully that helps you a little bit, and it's not quite as difficult, but believe me, it's not. And I'm going to do some more lighting. But one of the things I do on there, for example, is I take a magazine cover, and I break down how that magazine cover was possibly shot. I recreate it and show you what that looks like. So anyway, yes, lighting is a whole nother beast. But okay, I'm going to tell you something here, and you may not believe me, but trust me. If you learn how to use flash photography and lighting, I promise you, it will change your photography forever. It really will. It will give you more confidence, and you'll be able to walk into any situation and make an image. It may not be perfect. You may have limitations, but it will definitely change your photography. Now, I light everything I shoot. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that before. So it doesn't matter, indoor, outdoor. Some people only use lighting if they don't have light. But that's not for me. What I do is I use light to create and create the image that I want it to look like. If I want it to look dark, light, whatever. Maybe I'll try and, if I can find some here before the show's over, I'll try and pull a couple up and give you some examples. Okay. Yep. Lighting is definitely amazing. It will make a huge difference, I promise you. So, all right. Thanks, Allie. Okay, so let's move along here. Let's see what else we've got. Okay, so the next one is this one here. Whoops. And this one was submitted by HL. And HL has been shooting about 3 or 4 years. They also have some struggles with lighting, as again most people do, exposure and posing. And the theme or the motivation behind this image that they submitted was children dancing. And I love the comment they made next, which is the beauty of innocence. And I totally agree with that. Now, my question to you is, HL, do you think you captured that beauty of innocence? Do you think this photo does that? And if it does, why do you think it does? And you can leave that comment below if you're watching. And if it didn't, where do you think it missed the mark? Because I think there's some things you could have done a little better to improve this. And I'm trying to find, I didn't bring this one in. Weird. Anyway, so I think that there's a little bit more you could have done on this one. I see where you're going, though, and once again, I totally applaud you for making an attempt to do that, to try and to see how this can work for you and to work on a concept. Because, and I don't think I have the quote here, one of my favorite quotes is by Ansel Adams, and it goes something about, there's nothing worse than a sharp image of a fuzzy concept. So if you start with a concept first, then you at least have a direction of where you're trying to go with your image. Otherwise, and I see this over and over again, I hate to rag on this, but, and it's not necessarily in this particular case, but I see this over and over. People will rave about an image. Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so sharp. It's so this. But there's no meaning. It's a sunset. So what? I've seen a million of them. Okay, so I'd much rather have you work on a concept and not accomplish the concept, and at least work from that position as opposed to working from a technical position, which is a really sharp image that has no concept, no storytelling, no meaning. And so I at least applaud you here for having a meaning and being able to see something you're trying to communicate. So, having said that, I'm not sure what we can do to this image, but there. So the problem is, I wouldn't want to crop out this little boy to the right because that's the dancing part you're trying to get. But it does. It's I don't. It's a little. I'm not sure it works. Is the problem. So I don't know for a fact. You're going to have to tell me whether you think it works or not. But this is cool here. Now we've got some attention on the young lady's eye. She sees the hand, the reaching. I love the fact that the hand is a little bit blurry, and it shows there's some motion going on. And she was probably dancing when she saw this, and her hand here reached out. I don't know if this would work or not, but let's just try this. Let's see what happens if we try. You might lose the meaning by doing this. This is the problem here. So, I don't know if that works or not. Yeah, it probably doesn't. It's probably a little too tight. But you see where I'm trying to go with this. I'm trying to get you to draw attention to the girl and to the here, so you can see her face and the hand, which to me are the heroes of the shots, most important thing. So anyway, I see where you're going with this. Great job on your effort there. I applaud you for that. And it's just a little too busy, a little bit too much going on, so I don't feel it doesn't come across to me of what you're trying to the children dancing. But maybe you have some other ones, like maybe a photo of this boy from the other side of his face and the girl behind them, or the two of them together. That might be a cool picture if you've got something like that. But anyway, keep working on it. Good effort, and don't be discouraged. Believe me, it takes time. Okay, so the next one. Let's look at the next one here is. Okay, so this is one that was shot by WA, and WA's been shooting about 1 or 2 years. And this is WA says that it was a drizzy, horrible day, and I watched this rock fisherman out there still doing his thing because it was gray and dreary, and decided to take the picture in black and white, which I think makes perfect sense. It definitely works in black and white. Now, what I don't know is if let's look at, first of all, let's look at the composition here. I think the composition is on the money. If you look at the rule of thirds here, I don't know if you can see this or not. I know these lines are kind of light. I couldn't make them any thicker. Sorry. So you got this line over here. So you've got some what's called white space or space over here, empty space on the left, which is great. And the reason is that draws your attention right to the subject. The fact that the subject is silhouetted also draws your attention to it. You got the pole here, which is kind of like a leading line, which again draws your attention right to this subject right here, which is the most important thing. Also, the composition horizontally is good. Instead of putting them square in the middle, which a lot of people would have done, you did a great job of putting this in the lower third. So in other words, what you want to do on something like this is typically what you're trying to do is you want the uppermost image to be the most important. So in other words, if you're doing landscape and there's a beautiful sky, you want the sky to be the upper 2/3 and the foreground to be the bottom 2/3. But as you saw the one with the puppy with the dachshund, on that one, it kind of didn't work. You kind of want to reverse that. You want to use the foreground as the lower third, 2/3, to draw the viewer to the subject. And I think that's what you've done here. So the upper 2/3 of the image is the background. It's not distracting. It draws your attention right to the fisherman. And the lower third is positioned exactly right. Now, the one thing you might want to do to improve this, and I know WA, I know you're not an editor, I know you haven't gotten that far yet, but we're going to get you there, I promise, is to punch up the levels just a little bit. So if you look at it's kind of gray and dingy, which is fine. See, this is the other thing I don't like to spend too much time talking about toning and editing because that's so personal. I don't know what you're trying to, I know a little bit of what you're trying to accomplish. So maybe you wanted it to look gray. Maybe you didn't. I don't know. But I would have liked to punch it up just a little bit more. And so we can see there's the original. Now it may be a little washed out on your screen, but it looks good here. There's the original. It's a little gray, and you can always adjust that. Anyway, so by bringing up the levels, you can make this a little whiter. You can make the blacks a little darker, make it even more dramatic and more of an impactful image. So anyway, that's my suggestion. A good job though on that one. I really like it. Good eye. You saw that. You shot it in black and white. It worked perfectly for that. There's a good example where black and white really requires that you do that you really see in graphics, more graphical than you would in color. So to make something work in black and white, it has to be more graphical, and I think that's what you did here. Great job. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So the next one is also one from WA. Submitted this other one. It's a very similar one. And what they did on this one is they said they watched the surfer standing down the rocks, watching and waiting for the right moment to jump in and paddle out. And I happen to know that this person lives in Australia, so they were probably waiting on the the great whites to subside. Just teasing. So, yeah, good. Again, though, great image here. Same kind of thing. Composition-wise, let's look at this again. Rule of thirds, again, great job on that. Same thing, good composition, lower third, upper. See what a great job that having that empty space at the top does for making it look empty, making it look, it gives it, there's a sense of loneliness almost, a sense of anticipation. These are all feelings that we get from a picture like this, from just having the composition with the empty space on the top. It's not something we think of consciously many times. It takes a lot of practice. But when you start to recognize it, all of a sudden you say, oh yeah, this is the emotion I'm trying to get across. And that's really, this is storytelling. Storytelling in its finest, in my opinion. This is exactly what we should be doing as photographers, is telling stories, not taking pretty pictures. Once again, I probably would punch up the exposure a little bit on it, or the levels, make this white a little more whiter, and maybe it'll look blown out on your screen because of the video, but on mine it looks perfect, looks great. Again, the blacks are a little more silhouetted as well. I'll show what this looks like here if you want to see. So if you look here, you can see what the histogram looks like. So this peak over here on the right is the whites, and obviously the stuff on the left is the blacks. So before, this is the way the picture looked before. Okay, and it was the way it was shot, and that's fine. Again, maybe it's weird. But if you bring this over to the tip of that peak, then that makes your blacks a little deeper. And you do the same thing over here on the whites. Bring that up to the top. If you go too much, it's going to be blown out, right? But if you just bring it right there to the top, up to the bottom of the, where it just starts to, the exposure starts, the whites, the highlights start, then you can see where it really makes them pop a little bit. So anyway, just a little inside baseball. But great job again on this one. Really nice. Good eye. Good silhouette. And I think you did a great job on this one. Again, most people would have walked by this, not seen it. But WA, I think this one's a terrific one. And I applaud you for seeing that. Most people wouldn't. Okay. Now, this next image I'm going to show you is also one that was shot by OT, who submitted the pet photo. And the reason I kind of moved it to last is, quite frankly, it's stunning. They did such an amazing job on it that product photography should maybe be what, I don't know if you love doing it, but you certainly are good at it. So this is the, whoops, did I go too far? Oh, I didn't, where is that darn thing? Huh. Okay, here it is. So this is the picture here. So as you can see here, this is a photo that was submitted by OT. And let me go back to the notes on OT, and I'll tell you what. So this is they were kind of, again, product photography or documenting shot. And they said they were trying to move, or trying to create a memory, preserve the memory, obviously because of the time frame, 1984, and then it was a grand national champion. But just a phenomenal picture. I got to tell you, there's nothing I would suggest on this picture. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. You know, you could nitpick it. You could say you could crop it down a little bit, put a little more in the foreground. But even in this particular case, even though it is centered, it works as being centered. And that's because the belt does the work for you. The belt draws your eye to where you want it to go. Of course, the hero of the shot is what? The belt buckle. It's pretty obvious. You don't have to... But the staging with the leaves and the stuff around it are great because it kind of helps tell the story, but it also does not distracting or make you wander around the frame going, well, what is that? What am I looking at there? So excellent job on this one right here, OT. And I can't say enough about what a great job this one is. So perfect is the way I would say it. Couldn't think of anything else I would do differently on it. Okay, let's see. So I have a couple more I want to show you here before I let you go. If I can find them here now that I've hit on my buttons. Okay, so this next one, they, um, so, so, okay, so let's see here. I think Allie has a question. Let me see if I can find her question. Sorry about that. Yeah, here we go. Okay. She wants to know what editing program I'm using, and so I'm actually using a program called Affinity Photo. It's it's not one. It's like Photoshop, but it's less expensive. It has just as many. It's way overwhelming. It has a lot of features. So if you're interested in doing Photoshop, but you don't want to do the subscription model, the nice thing about this product is I think it may be $31. I'm not sure. I forget. It's close. I got it when it was on sale at $25, and it's an amazing product. And so I now look, I've been using Photoshop for 20 plus years, so I know Photoshop, but I wanted to have an alternative as the reason I'm using it. So I have two things. I subscribe to Photoshop, I use Photoshop, but I have a lot of people like yourself that want to know what they should be using. Maybe they don't want to subscribe to a long program like, a lifetime subscription. And so they want an alternative. So I forced myself to learn this program. And what I found is it's really an amazing application because it works pretty much exactly like Photoshop, which was for me was pretty interesting because I could go through and I'm used to using shortcut keys. So example, this background, if I want to duplicate this background, what I do is I hit Control J and that creates a duplicate. See, now there's two layers there. One, this is exactly, well, that's something I learned in Photoshop. Well, the keystrokes are exactly the same in this program. And you also have layers and things like that you can do. So you can, again, I could put a layer on top of it. Again, brush, B is a brush. That's what I would do in Photoshop. Same thing. So all the keys are the same. And I will show you. Tell you what. Let me bring up. I'll bring up the website for you just so you can see real quick. Sorry about that distraction. Yeah, here we go. And they've got some other programs, by the way. It's not just a Photoshop like they have. I bought all three of their programs actually because I just thought it was so cool. And I thought they have one called Publisher, which is very much like Photoshop Design, or InDesign is what it's called. All right, so let's see here. So should be able to bring this up for you. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so this is the product right here, and they have. Let's see if I go to menu. So there's Photo is the Photoshop program, and it is you can get it for an iPad. You can get it for it runs on Mac. Okay, so it looks like it's not updating here. Huh, weird. Okay, anyway, so it's $54.99, but it's the nice thing is it's free when you use a free trial, and when you you don't have, it's one time, that's it. So you buy it one time, $54, and like I said, they have it on sale from time to time, 50% off. But even at $54, it's a pretty good deal, and it's available for Windows or Mac or iPad. And they have a couple other programs. One's Publisher, so if you're doing more InDesign kind of layout stuff, and then they have another one called I forgot what it's called now. What is it called? I should know this by now. Photo. It's called Affinity Photo. Oh, publisher. That's what it is. Publisher and designer. So designer is very much like not After Effects, excuse me. Photoshop, InDesign, where you're doing, let me back up a second. Sorry. Designer is like using Photoshop, can't think of Illustrator, sorry. A vector-based program, and publisher is like using InDesign. Anyway, I know you didn't ask all this. I apologize. Going into too much detail. So that's what I'm using right now. But Photoshop or anything like this, you don't have to go this sophisticated. Another program you might want to look at is called, It's by a company called Skylum, and it's called Luminar, and it's an amazing program as well. And you might want to consider something like that. It also, here I'll show what this looks like. And it's also an inexpensive program, and it yeah, here we go. It's a sky replacement and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. Oh, I see. Got to put it in the right spot there, Lee. Okay. Here we go. Oh, it's going to let me. Okay. So this is what the Skylum program. This will also do. Neo is the name of the program. Luminar Neo. And it's a phenomenal program as well. So this is another one you might want to look at. And again, both these I think have free trials you can play with. This one would be a little easier to use in some regards. It's more click, and they have libraries. You can see here in the demo, they're changing the sky replacement just by hitting a button. So it's a little easier to use than Photoshop would be. So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to get off on a tangent there. Okay, so back to what I was showing you before Allie so rudely interrupted me. Just teasing Allie. So this other one here, this is a photo, was not submitted, but one I wanted to show you. This is by Brian Carr, and Brian Carr photographs toys, and his work is just amazing. This is one of his latest photos, and he'll put them in situations where you wouldn't even believe it's a toy. I mean, they're just amazing. This is pretty good. This isn't even as good as the ones he normally does. It's just the latest one he picked. I wanted to show you. So anyway, and so his stuff is amazing. If you're interested in looking, he has a website called Toy Photographer Magazine. I guess it's Toytographer Magazine, and .com, and also he's on Facebook as well. And Brian is one of our students, and so he's just really improved over a short period of time. And one last photo I want to show you here is somebody else who I'm very proud of. This is this is a composite by Crystal Rivera. And Crystal is, I like to brag on her. I hope she doesn't mind. I hope she's not listening. Well, I hope she is listening. Anyway, Crystal was somebody that, the thing about Crystal is she got a camera, and she started using it and just got really discouraged because everyone was trying to tell her she needed to learn all this technical stuff. She didn't understand it. I don't think I'm talking out of school. She got overwhelmed with it. It's like, this is crazy. And I reached out to her and I started working with her, and she just totally has blossomed. She's a good example of someone that's an artist. She's not a techno weenie like a lot of photographers are. And so she sees things differently than most people. And she's got a background in graphics design, so she's combined the work of her photography with her graphic design. So I think I have, let's see if I have this other picture here. There's one here. Yeah, this is what the scene looks like before she did work on it. This is what the background looks like. This is the final photo. Now, is that frickin' amazing or what? She's just awesome, this woman. And so, so all the poster work, everything is all stuff she designed. So Crystal is an amazing artist, and someone like Brian who sees this stuff as an artist would see it, not like a techno weenie or a geek. There's nothing wrong with being a geek, but if you're going to really take your photography to the next level, it's got to be more than the technical, and that's the problem. I hate to harp on this so much, but it just bugs me. I see so many people teaching the technical and not teaching the artistic, and that's really kind of what we're all about at Photo Mentor Academy. So if you're interested, love to have you visit the site, and of course, I'd love to have you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and of course, if you want to, something I wanted to mention here before I let you guys go is that we're doing a webinar for social media for photographers. I should have mentioned this earlier. This is going to be a phenomenal webinar. It's being taught by Sue Ann, and Sue Ann has forgotten more about what social media than I've ever known, and she just really understands this stuff. And so I've asked her to do an interview with me. We're going to do a webinar, about an hour-long webinar for you guys, if I can keep her to an hour. She's got a lot of information. It's hard to compact. It's kind of like this little dynamo, nuclear thing I got to keep shielded so she doesn't explode on us. But anyway, so Sue Ann's going to do a webinar for you guys, and I highly encourage you to sign up for this. It's not available just yet, but go to photomentoracademy.com/social media. Put your name and your email in there. And in the next couple of weeks, when the webinar is available, you'll get a special invitation. And also, she's doing a full-length, massive, I say massive, it's really an incredible course that you can follow up if you want more information. But even if you don't, the webinar is going to be free. I encourage you to check that out. So, Photo Mentor Academy/social media. Sign up for that, and you'll get notified when that course or when that webinar is available. Okay. I think I've run out of everything to talk about. I think it's very rare, but it does happen. So I'll leave you with this one last quote here, and that is that if you want your photography to touch more people, then forget about learning to take better pictures. Learn to tell better stories. This is really what it's all about. So anyway, thanks everybody. Enjoyed it, and I'll see you next month, if not before.